till we wake. Hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side when our things are done. Oh, the good times just begun. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Oh, life's crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Oh, you and I, we got it. Oh, we don't need no more. Oh, even in the hard times, you and I can weather any storm. Before I sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon. Side by side and through. No limit to what we can do. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life.
Hey guys, Constance here from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I'm bringing you out into the garden this morning to talk compost. So if you do any sort of gardening, of course compost is your best friend. And if you can produce your own compost, even better, because it saves you money, of course. You can take your kitchen scraps, your farm waste, and all of that, and make compost out of it. But in order to do that, you have to have a compost area, a place where you can take all of those things and have them break down. When we first bought our property here, almost 5 years ago, one of the very first things I did was create a compost area. And I wanted it to be sort of out of the way, and so I set it up down at the edge of the wood line. Now, at that point, we had nothing on our property. I think I had maybe just built my chicken coop. I don't even know if I had that yet. There was nothing. There was no fences, there was no garden area, nothing. Our property was a blank slate, and so there wasn't really an idea of where I would want a compost area. I just wanted it kind of out of the way. And so I did the like classic pallet area that you see a lot of people do, and it works fantastic for a lot of people. It's cheap, it's easy to put together, and bam, you've got a compost area. And generally the ideal is to have 3 areas. One section where you put in the brand new stuff, then you rotate it to the next section, and when you scoop it all up and put it into the next one, that mixes it up, it aerates it, helps it break down. Then when that first one is full again, you kind of take the middle one, move it to the third, move the first one to the second, and then you have your new area open again for the new stuff. And that 3-bay setup is classic. It works fantastic. And I had started doing that down there in that area. And while I had wanted it to be out of the way, that was a little bit too out of the way. And one of the issues that I was having is it was rapidly getting taken over by vines. I mean, it was turning into a constant chore to keep it cleared of honeysuckle and greenbrier. Greenbrier is a vine that grows wild here, and it has vicious thorns on it. Vicious. And so it was turning into a constant chore to try and keep that compost area clear. So once we fenced in our garden area here, I decided to go ahead and create a compost area right in the garden. I figured, you know, since the garden is where I'm going to be using the compost, why not make the compost in the garden? It's a little bit closer to the house, and it'd be very convenient to just scoop it all out, throw it in the garden beds. Well, here's the thing. Remember what I said about the vines? The vines weren't just in the woods, coming out of the woods, they're everywhere. And not just vines, but one of the things that we really deal with here is wild blackberries. I mean, they are everywhere and they try to take over everything. It is a constant battle with those. I could walk out there in the pasture area, like where the animals are not at, and I'm sure I could go, I wouldn't be able to go a couple steps without finding a couple wild blackberry shoots. They're everywhere. I've got my really deep raised beds that I built out here in this garden area, and they're deep beds. I've got blackberries coming up through those, even though when I built these beds, I put down a layer of heavy-duty 20-year weed barrier. Yeah, not so much. Needless to say, those raised beds are going to be one of my jobs this week. Not only the blackberries, but I've got some fire ants that have moved in there, so I need to mix up some of my fire ant killer and deal with those and get those beds prepped for garden season. So as I was saying, the compost area, convenient being right up here in the garden area, but once again, vines and the wild blackberries shooting up through the compost area, making it pretty much impossible to use. So I did a little bit of brainstorming and I came up with an idea, and I think it might work this time. I needed something to create essentially a floor for my compost. A floor to keep things like the blackberry vines from growing up and just taking over the compost area. So not too long ago, I went to my local Tractor Supply and I found some stall mats. These stall mats are a heavy-duty rubber mat, and they are just practically indestructible. So I took 2 of the really big rubber mats, I laid them down here and created a floor, and then I built my compost areas. So there was a little bit of an expense going into this compost area as opposed to my free pallets and like my garden stakes that I just pounded in to hold them in place. But in the end, I think this will work better because now that we've got goats, we've got Sophie here, we have her friend coming before too long, I've got lots of manure. I've got garden gold that can be breaking down and creating compost. And so while there was some expense at first putting this one together, I think if this works, that will in the end save me some money because I won't have to buy compost, at least not as much. So let me show you what I did here. So the first thing I did was I put down the heavy-duty rubber mats to create a floor. Then I attached 2 2x4s from that fence post to that fence post, and I'll show you right back here. You can see them right there. Just screwed them in. And then I used pallet wood to create a wall, and I just screwed them to the 2x4s going all the way down. Then I used some of these handy dandy landscaping bricks or blocks or whatever you want to call these things. The brand is Old Castle. I got them at my local Lowe's. They're actually on sale right now for $2 and change. And so I got some of these to create my walls. Used some scrap wood down in there. And then again, more of the pallet boards to create the dividers. Now in the middle here, I kind of staggered the boards. That way there's airflow for the compost to help it break down. And in the front here, I have a, let's see, this was a 2x10 that I cut into sections. And as you can see, I've already scooped out Sophie's barn stall. And I've begun using my first section here. So I think this will work better because every wall of the compost is over the black mat. So I've got some overhang, and hopefully this will keep the honeysuckle and the blackberries and all of that from taking this over. Alright, so I think this might work better since I have those rubber stall mats down and the walls were built over the mats, so there's no exposed ground inside my compost bins. I'm thinking this might work better. My fingers are crossed. I really hope that third time's the charm with my compost set up. Sophie! Hi, baby! I'm going to head into the house, get a little bit of work done in there. Did a ton of mowing yesterday, which is why I've got my glasses on today. I got some debris in my eye and my eye is still angry today, so taking a break from the contacts. So that is it for today. Thanks for hanging out with me out here in the garden with Miss Sophie. I will talk to y'all next time.